Okay.
All right. The first thing I want to say about digital communications, is this thing going to go away or do I have to click something?
For what?
Just say, got it.
Okay. Okay. First thing I want to say about digital is we are not talking about codes and ciphers. Codes and ciphers are illegal on amateur radio. What is a code or a cipher that is illegal? It is something where you're transmitting traffic with the intention of hiding it. If you're going to send a secret message to your friends or whatever, if the cat starts saying, let's take over the world, things of that nature, that is illegal on amateur radio. That said, there's more to amateur radio than voice and Morse. About the 1960s and 70s, a whole bunch of people started to get computers in their homes, and they started to come up with codes and that the digital material that could be sent over the radio. What has to happen if you do this is there's a group, and I've forgotten the name of them, but you turn it over to them, they approve it, and then they give it, and then you can use it because it's available to everyone. If I have a digital program and I want to send it to Greg, but Carol doesn't have it, I'm not denying her that information. She simply has to get the proper digital, and then she can get it. It's automatic.
Oh.
So can the rest of the world get a hold of my message if they put forth the effort? If I was going to talk to you in Spanish or Japanese or something like that, and you had studied that, there would be no trouble. But if you don't study it, it's your fault. So that's kind of the way it is on digital. If you digital equipment, you get a CD with all of these programs on it. So it's available to you. And if you want to have every single one that there ever was, you need to contact, and I'm afraid I've forgotten the name, but the group will give you the information that you need. So that's the difference between codes and more digital stuff. We don't send anything in code yet. Morse code is one of our major things. Morse code is not a code, it is a language. So anybody who cares to study it and become proficient with it can get it. And that's the difference between digital and codes.
Come on, get up here.
Oh, are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to Rufus. He wants to come join.
Well, he can learn this stuff. Perhaps he can translate for you later. But
Okay.
anyway, so when you have a digital mode that's in your computer or whatever, it's not too difficult to send this stuff. Without computers in most people's radio station, we wouldn't be able to do digital. But because during the 60s and the 70s, everybody who has amateur radio usually put a computer in their system, we can do digital with a great deal of ease. One of the things that we need to remember is that there are different kinds. For example, Morse code changes everything into dits and das. there's dits, dots, and spaces. That's all there is on Morse code. And you, if you realize that that's the same as on a computer throwing out ones and twos, that's what digital is. They're throwing out ones and twos, and that's what's going across the air. Now, if you tune to a digital system like the one in Washington, there's a very large code processing system in Washington, D.C. The call sign on it is WAR 1, WAR 1. And it's for the Army. And they're sending out stuff that is highly classified all over the world all the time. And if you listen to it, it sounds like white noise. Are you familiar with white noise? Where it just sounds, that's what you hear. So unless you have a whole lot of really expensive computer equipment, most of which you cannot buy legally, you're not going to be able to do WAR 1. Now, some of the things that they have is Bardot. That, have you ever seen, particularly in the military, where a guy's typing and there's a whole lot of wires go off to the side? That is RTTY, radio teletype. We have that, we can use it. We just have to have the radio teletype program, which is 5-bit Bardot. Bardot comes from the word baud, and it is the little symbols that come out in 5 dot groups, and that's what radio teletype is. There's keyboard to keyboard. A good example of this is PK31. When you're typing on your keyboard, it's sending out these symbols. They're called packets. And a packet has 3 elements. Number 1, the first element is your call sign and who is supposed to get this message. The second is the message. And the third, which is probably the most interesting part, is the correction. If you make a mistake and you're sending out code and the atmospherics throws in an extra dot or dash or whatever, and it changes the message, the information at the end of the packet will tell you that there's been an error, and then will automatically ask for a resend of that packet. You don't have to do anything about it or even know that it's happening.
Spell checker, in other words.
Yes. Now, if you send out a word and you spell it wrong, the wrong becomes part of the message. So it won't correct it. It just tells you that this is what she sent. Pactor and WinLink are VHF, very popular modes to send. WinLink, I think, is the most popular. Right now, FT8. I have some real questions about that. FT8, you can only send 8 characters in your message, and 5 of them have to be your call sign. So I'm sort of saying, is this amateur radio or is this just playing around? It's like playing tag, because if I get an FT8 message from you and I respond to it, it's like saying tag. I haven't done anything with it, don't intend to, but at the same time, some people think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're crazy, but that's okay. You may find it quite interesting. I just think if I'm sending my call sign and 3 letters, I'm not really communicating very well. Well, anyway, on page 512, there's a list of the various ones, and there are more. It seems to me like during the 60s and the 70s, people were coming up with new digital formats about once a month. One of them was so interesting that the Army stepped in, took it away from the amateurs who were developing it, finished the development, and then gave it back to the amateurs. I'm assuming the Army kept a little bit of it that they didn't tell us about so that they could send secret stuff over it. But the government was very actively involved in developing these. I bought a TNC, which is the thing between your computer and your radio, so I could do that. And with it came a disc of various modes that you could do. Pactor and Pactor Networks. This is the one where it sends out the message, and then it says, was there a mistake in that? An ARQ is a message that my repeater or my radio sends to yours. Say, could you send that again? And your computer will do it. It's all automatic. But by doing that, we can have error-free messaging. Remember when we're having a lot of old lightning and static and all kinds of atmospheric problems, there's a potential for the message to become corrupted by having a different letter or something like that repeated and sent on that you didn't send. Well, this fixes that. And that's kind of nice. PSK, phase shifting keying. The message is sent on two different levels, which are side by side. And when you type one key, it's on the top side. You type another key, it's on the bottom side. Goes back and forth between those two. Then when it gets to the whole thing to the your computer, it sorts them out and spits it out to you. APRS, Automatic Positioning Reporting System. If you go on a trip and you want your friends to know where you are, you use APRS. They can look on a map that's generated on their computer and see wherever you are on that map. I also understand that if we mark a hurricane or an airplane or something like that with this APRS, we can see it coming to us. And so this is what they do with hurricanes, so that we'll know where it's going and where it's going to hit us. Yes, they send out airplanes, and the airplanes find them, but then the APRS is what they use for tracking it once it gets in. So position of your location. Let me see. This is hooked up with a global positioning program, so that when the little dot comes in and this is where I am, it will be worked out into a map, and you'll be able to see. A lot of people travel a lot in their retirement, and they will give all their friends the APRS frequencies, and so we can see, are you in Ohio or Tennessee or Maine or whatever you are? It'll show on this map, and your friends can keep track of you.
So Bob, you would have to be hooked up to a computer then for that to work.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Considering the size of computers, that's not really a big deal. It's expensive. I don't want to hide that. But if you're traveling in a mobile home and you have your radio set up and your APRS system hooked up to your computer, it will work. It's not a big, huge monster thing. And up here at the top of 514, you will see a map with little spots on it. Well, in theory, somebody you know is on those spots. And you can tell that because your computer is going to show you the map. And then you can have whatever arrangement you want as far as colors and things like that, so you can tell who's where. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, now, computers are very important to this, and I'm going to tell you how to hook them up. On page number 514, there's a picture of a computer, keyboard and
Monitor.
and radio. Now, this is not one way to hook up the two together. This is three separate ways. Now you notice towards the top, there's a radio control data and the USB port. You put from the USB port, go back around behind the radio, and there's a place to hook it in. More detail would be required when you bought the equipment. But that's basically how it happens. And the computer is talking to the radio, and the radio is talking to the computer through that wire. Now, there's another one about halfway down here. You see a box called TNC or MPC. Terminal node connector. You take it from the computer and the radio, hook them together, and at that point, they're translated from computer to radio and radio to computer. And this is where, when you have all the programs into your computer on how to do digital work, that is the point where things will get translated. And then there's another method where it goes in the audio interface, which plugs into where your microphone would plug in, and it goes over to the computer, and it's audio to and from the radio, and this is the traffic from goes into the audio interface. Any of those three methods will get you what you want. If you want to tell use your computer as like you would use a key or a microphone to send traffic into the radio. You're looking kind of there.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, so on the figure 514, you're saying that these lines going to the computer, each one is a separate way of doing it. So there's three different ways.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it.
Yeah, you don't want to have all that kind of hardware sitting on your desk and wires all over the place. You want to reduce that to the smallest number you can. Any one of those three will work.
And if we don't want to use the computer at all, we're okay.
Yes,
All right.
there's no law that says you have to do it, but in order to answer these questions properly, you have to know what I'm telling you so you can answer them, and then never ever buy a computer to go next to your radio.
That's what I was kind of assuming, that this is a lot of information that we need to know, but I'll probably never use.
Well, for some people, that's right. But Carol, you have to realize ham radio is big enough that there are people who do not own microphones.
Yeah.
And if they want to do it that way and their friends are happy with that, fine. I don't care. If they want to talk to me, I want to be spoken to. I want to have that happening. I'm trying to pick up Morse code and get better at that. But I really would prefer you to talk to me like I'm talking to you right now.
Well, I get kind of frustrated sometimes because people want to text me all the time on my cell phone. I don't like my darn cell phone. I hate that thing. Just pick up the telephone and call me, for crying out loud.
That's the
well,
way I feel too.
to show you how much I love and depend on my cell phone, I've never had one.
Good for you.
You want to talk to me, pick up the real phone.
Yep.
Or talk to me on the radio or something like that I can understand. I do not have nor intend to buy a cell phone. So if somebody calls you and says, I'm Bob Sullivan on my cell phone, you'll know you're being impersonated. Okay, now there's another setup that you have, and that's on 515. You've got your radio, you've got this data interface, and it could be either of the kinds that we've talked about. But we have this other one on the dial-up, which is hooked to your telephone equipment. And if you want to be a source for other people to use the internet, this is how you do it. The internet will come into your radio through the computer, through this dial-up thing, and you can answer on the radio. Now, I told you that FEMA is planning for us when we have a major nationwide problem where it goes over many, many states. Zombie uprising is the thing that I think of first. They will want us to communicate by email. Email over shortwave. Hello, Brenda. I didn't get in touch with you and said we started the class early today. Greg has something he has to do. I will go over the stuff with you on the phone whenever it's convenient, and we'll let Greg have the thing. I'm sorry, it's my fault. I didn't call you and tell you about this, but we started at 6 o'clock.
Well, you owe me, Bob, since I didn't show up to the potluck last week. So I apologize for that.
Well, you missed
apologize to each other.
Yes.
And you missed some good food too, let me tell you.
Trust me, if I could have been there, I would have been. Been a little busy at work, but.
And this meeting is being recorded, and so it will be on that Facebook page
Okay.
pretty
Well,
soon.
I'm not on Facebook. Is there any other way to access that, Greg, or no?
I can, I'll email you a link to it on my YouTube page.
Perfect. I love YouTube. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now back to internet coming into your computer and then going onto the radio. It's possible. There's some equipment. I'm afraid I have not had enough money really to figure this out for myself. So I can't tell you how I did it, but at the same time, it is possible to have your internet handling traffic which goes out over your radio. And in this one, Carol, I am sorry, but you will have to have a computer for that one too.
Rufus says this is getting pretty heavy.
I know. But cats, you know, the whole problem with cats is that one time in Egypt, they were worshipped as gods. And they have never really forgotten that.
I'm hearing feedback. I'm sorry. Is that from Brenda's computer?
Turning it off.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go over power supplies a little bit. Why do we need power supplies? We have power coming in to the from batteries or into our radio from the wall plug. Well, the problem with the wall plug is it works usually at 110 or 120 volts. This is more than a radio needs. In fact, it will fry your radio. On a radio, you need 13.5. So you have the power supply in between the radio and the wall plug so that it basically throws away unnecessary power. You don't need it. I don't like to do wasteful things, but that's something we have to do. Mobile power supplies, usually they're wired off the battery of your car. It talks a little bit in here about how to do it. But the idea is a radio just about anywhere is using 13.5 watts to send a signal out. If you're on a mobile phone or a mobile setup like a car battery's got 12 volts in it. And that's enough that it'll get a signal out. There's really not a lot of difference between 12 and 13.5. So hook up a power supply or a something to help you so you don't burn up your radio. Now, I'm going to go over something that we did in class, but I'm not sure everybody did it. And I think Rufus's notes are not complete, so we'll let him. For those of you who don't know, Rufus is Carol's cat who sits on her when we have lessons. And I have told him several times that no matter how good his score is, he will not be allowed to sit for the exam. But he persists. Anyway, now on your station, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, Brenda, he thinks he's the king of the roost here, but he's not.
Okay. This is a type of a setup that you will be able to use all the time. It's set up with a very heavy battery. And if you go to the automotive store or a RV store, something like that, you'll find out there's such a thing as an RV or marine battery. It's a very heavy battery, good for storing for large amounts of electricity, but only 12 volts at a time. Now you plug your trickle charger into your regular plug-in on the wall. That will feed up to 12 volts into this all the time, into the battery all the time. And when you get the battery full, it will be more than you're going to need to draw to run the radio. If you have one of these in there, one of these systems, you will not have to worry about power for about 3 days, which will get us through most emergencies around here. I don't know about Japan, Brenda, but I do know that around here, when we lose power, we don't usually keep it gone for more than a couple of days. So what I have done and before, and will do in this station, is I'll set this up, but because it's coming out of the battery at 12 volts, you don't need a power supply. Now, a power supply will cost you about $100, and trickle charger will cost you about $100, so it doesn't really matter. But having your radio, and if the power goes out, you're still drawing off the battery. So you're going to be able to go for a very long time. Carol, did you have a question?
Yeah, I kind of see a lot of stuff. I'm thinking Bob lives in a really teeny tiny little travel trailer. He has a little bitty table. He and I
So
are
does this
talking.
Bob.
I had us muted there so we could talk, but
Yeah.
I think he's going to end up with a handheld device probably.
Well,
But I also see we're spending some money here, aren't we?
yes, we are.
Yeah,
The thing is, once you have this system in place, did we get a drawing of it? Once you have this system in place, as long as you keep the battery in good shape, you put distilled water in it when the water goes down. You can use this for years. Now, if I'm going to go and start a stamp collection, or if I'm going to buy a rifle, I got to buy new stamps every month or new bullets or whatever. It's an ongoing expense. With radio, there are these initial expenses, but you don't go on forever with them. The only time yes, Brenda,
I have a question about the trickle charger.
yeah,
What does that look like?
it's just a little thing like this. It's got a wire coming out of one end and a wire going out of the other.
Do you
And it
get that at Radio Shack or somewhere, or where do you?
My brother just got it for me, got me one, and he got everything at Walmart. You just go into the automotive section and say, I want a trickle charger, and I'm not going to leave until you give me one. And that's about all there is to it.
well, I'm thinking this is kind of going to be like me having 5 sewing machines back in my sewing room.
Well, you only need one radio. If you want 2 or 3, that's okay. But at the same time, you're only going to need to do this if you're going to be planning on doing emergency work.
Okay,
And in this area for the church, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
right.
This thing my brother got for me the other day, everything cost $111. And it's everything that you see here. And I got a pan that you put the battery in, because if the battery starts to leak, you want something that isn't going to get onto the floor and all over the place. Cats should stay away from these things. But yes, you're going to have a lot of equipment.
Okay.
Yes, it's going to cost money for the initial outlay. But the reason we're in this business, as far as I'm concerned, is to help the people around me get through whatever emergency comes down the line.
Right.
And if I budget myself correctly and I don't overspend just because I got the money, I won't have that problem. So it's kind of how far in are you going to go? Please go in with a 2-meter rig, because then I can talk to you and you can talk to me. And when I say, Carol, tell me what your bishop is saying about supplies they might need or stuff of that nature, you'll be able to tell me.
Gotcha.
Now, if Salt Lake calls and wants to know, I'll talk to them. Carol can't come to the radio just now because she and Rufus are doing something else. But because I've talked to you, I can tell Salt Lake what they need.
Okay, gotcha.
So yes, you can spend a lot of money on this, but you don't spend it all at once. Yes, Brenda.
So I was walking on my road right outside my house, picking up litter, which is what I do once a week. And I ran into one of my neighbors, and the people that I went to last month mentioned him. And I said, oh, is it the same person? Anyways, I encountered him on the road and he confirmed, yes, he is a ham operator radio too. And he's like a quarter of a mile away from me. So I want to go see his setup too. I just like all these
Absolutely.
connections because I like to see what other, you know.
Any of you who knows a ham, before we're done, before everything is set up and working, I want you to go to their house and say, look, I'm building a station. Let me see what you've got. And I don't know any ham in the world that will not let you see everything that they've got. I learned a lot of things about how to set up a station properly and so forth from going to these other hams and say, just show me what you got. And so we should always do that. And they're called shack visits. Radios are always kept in shacks. Even in my Taj Mahal had a radio room, it would be called a shack.
So
But,
yeah, it's gonna be called shack.
You go to as many as you can. And every one of you, I want you to visit my shack. Next time you're in town or whatever, I want you to come in and look and see how I've set it up and how I'm going to set it up and my plans and so forth. So you can say, okay, this will fit with my plans, or it won't. How would you do this if you had that? And we talk about stuff. Hams are great planners. When you get onto to the nets, and for all of you, your information at 7:30, 146.610, 7 o'clock on Tuesday nights. This is the local ham club's meeting. Now, I don't know about Florence and I don't know about south of Bandon because I've never been in those clubs. But they have a time when they're all going to sit around and talk on the radio. Why? Number one, for emergency work, we have to make sure your radio is working every day. And the only way I can do that is when I say, okay, Brenda, how's my signal coming in? And you'll respond. And then just to make sure, because you're in one direction, and I'll say, okay, Carol, how is my signal coming in? And I'll get a different answer because they're in different directions. But that tells me that I'm able to go on the air and deal with an emergency. When I'm talking to you, then I know your radio is working too.
Okay.
So that's why we have nets every week. How are we doing on time, Chief?
We got about 9 more minutes and then we gotta be off.
Does anybody have any questions about what I'm talking about here? I didn't go into batteries because I think most of us know most of what there is to know about batteries anyway. Some of them are rechargeable, some of them aren't. They do ask questions about rechargeable and non-rechargeable. But I think that when you read through it, you'll get that information and understand it.
Rufus says he's got it, Bob.
Pardon?
Rufus says he's got it.
Okay. Well, if Rufus and Bob are both happy with what they have and understand it, and we can probably end the lesson now and not worry about it too much, unless somebody else has a question.
Bob,
Yes.
okay, so you go from the plug-in to the trickle charger, then what size battery do you use?
The largest one you can find, which are usually marine or RV batteries,
Oh, okay.
because you want to have the biggest pile of electrons that you can possibly get to keep you on the air longer.
And then how do you connect it to the radio?
Well, on the radio, there are two wires coming off, and they hook to the battery the same way it does to your car.
Oh, okay. And the trickle charger keeps it from being too powerful for the radio, is that right?
No,
No?
the trickle charger is what pumps into the battery. It keeps pumping it in there until the battery is topped off full. Then
Okay,
when it goes through the battery will only give you 12 volts at a time. That's what keeps it from frying your radio. Now,
Oh,
if you put in a power supply, that keeps it from going into your radio too fast. I'm giving you alternatives of different ways you can do this, Nancy.
okay. So the battery isn't gonna fry the radio as long as you have the triple charger? The trickle
It will-
charger?
The battery will never fry the radio at all because it only puts out 12 volts at a time.
Oh, okay.
It has a lot of volts behind it, but it will only put out 12 at a time.
Bob,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Bear's wondering if he can use his RV battery.
An RV battery is what I'm talking about.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because I've got a charger built in on mine.
Yeah. Well, if you have that battery, then all you need is a trickle charger to get going.
Okay.
And when you hook your radio into it, there's a whole lot of power coming down the line. Yes, Brenda?
So this is a technical question I don't know much about, but if your RV was hooked up and you wanted to use the power to your RV at the same time you were doing the radio, would you be able to do the two simultaneously?
As long as you did not exceed the 12 volts on the battery and whatever else your thing was drawing, you see, you're going to get 12 volts out of that battery. It's an RV battery. It's only going to get you 12 volts. What does it take to run a refrigerator and a television and all the other things that you've got and the radio? So you have to do an analysis on what do I need to have here? Well, I've got a jacuzzi and I've got all these other things going on. So I'm going to be drawing power from my regular RV battery pretty heavy. Better put in another one.
Okay.
Not. Depending on what your use is. Good thing to do with this is get somebody who knows how these systems work and have them go over it with a meter. Then they'll tell you all about it. And it sounds like you've got a technical representative over there in Japan that could probably do that for you. Anyone else with questions? Are we on time, Mr. Williams?
Yep.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, this lesson is over. Any questions? You got my number.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you, Greg, for getting us on tonight. Thank you, Bob. Good lesson.
Mhm.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
All right.
Bob.
Thank
I
you.
will have this on the Facebook page later tonight or tomorrow morning. And Brenda, I'll send you the link to the video on my YouTube page, probably tonight, but it might be tomorrow. Mhm.
Greg, when you send that, would you send one to me too? Because I don't have it.
Sure.
And I also don't have how to go on the club's website or whatever it is.
Facebook.
Okay.
Is there only 2 on the Facebook page so far?
I think there's 3.
Okay.
There was one
I-
week that I couldn't get I basically, when it prepares it on the computer and then I drag it onto my screen so that I can download it onto the YouTube page. Well, when I dragged it, it went into one of the file folders on my computer and I have hundreds of those things.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
And I've been trying to find it and I cannot find it.
When you get a count on how many might be missing from this whole process, you and I can work it out. And then
Okay.
put it
Like
in other-
finding a needle in a haystack.
They're called
It
drag and
is.
drop.
Well,
It is.
finding a needle in a haystack is not all that difficult if you're using a large industrial magnet.
Okay, that's your goodie for the night, Bob.
Yes, ma'am. And good night to Rufus.
Yep,
Okay.
he's
Good
off
night,
tormenting his
everybody.
sisters.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.